Maybe because we're running a little behind, we'll go to the next talk. And the next talk is by Craig Callender, and it's entitled Science, Philosophy, and Values. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Craig. I'm the chair of the philosophy department. These are supposed to be TED-style talks, but TED speakers have 6 months or a year to prepare. I had 2 hours, so it won't be like a TED talk whatsoever. This quote from the song by Tom Lehrer, is a great one for the Strategic Planning Initiative, which is trying to find interdisciplinary possibilities between different departments. It says, once the rockets are up, who cares where they come down? That's not my department, says Werner von Braun. And it's also a good quote for this particular initiative where Larry and John and I have been talking about possible initiatives in bioethics and other areas, related areas, because obviously there's another thing that's not in his department is, the ethical and social ramifications of what's being done. And so here I just wanted to quickly sketch the basic core idea that, as I see it, which is that you have all these rapid developments in technology and science, and these often provide all these massive benefits to humanity, but they often outpace our social, moral, and legal norms. We aren't equipped to deal with them as quickly as they arise. So we have all these challenges, and so there's this big gap between what we're producing and our response to it. The field of bioethics, broadly construed as environmental ethics, medical ethics, and other areas of ethics, areas of philosophy of science and values, it asks and answers these important questions. Even though there's no department of bioethics, there are still these important questions. And it really draws on interdisciplinary work. So you need to know the science. If you don't know the science, you're not going to do very good bioethics. And you need to know the ethics. You need to have some sort of. It can't just be whatever you think. It's got to be some reflected principles in that you come up with. Well, UCSD is, as we know, is equipped with cutting-edge science. So every single day when you open your email, there's some sort of cutting-edge thing coming out in science. And so we have all these world-class scientists, but we also have all these world-class philosophers of science, ethicists, and political philosophers. And so the way I see it is we have this great untapped opportunity for connection here. And as we know, there's currently all these gaps on campus between the development of these new scientific ideas and ethical ramifications. In fact, you can see 2 of the gaps. So here's one, and then here's another. You call one gap Gilman, and the other one Torrey Pines. And so there aren't environmental ethicists. There's not a bioethics institute like at other places. And so I've already used up half of my time, and I'm on only slide 1. So ethics, there is a 2,500-year-old history of a body of knowledge to draw on here, but it's not all just sort of sitting around. And if you're a philosopher, it's not all just sitting around in robes thinking about what is good. It's there's more to that. So you can find all these cases where philosophers are engaging science, and so. I have all these different examples, which I won't have time to get through, but if you think of things like any kind of cost-benefit analysis, you want to look at the harms and benefits later. You want to monetize it in some way. And so if you're thinking about climate change, as came out big time when the Stern report was announced, you have to translate the later dollars, future dollars, into present dollars. And so the economists will introduce this discount rate R. And then Stern, famously put in essentially a 0 discount rate, and so he said that the future harms and goods were the equivalent of today's harms and goods. Other economists, mostly American ones, said no, you need to put in like 3-4%, something like that. But then, if you do that, you then quickly you're making a real judgment. You have to put in some value for R. Putting in 0 is still putting in some number. You have to make that judgment. Where does that judgment come from? It comes from some kind of ethical reflection in that. What's alarming in cases like this is that really matters, because this is a cost-benefit analysis for what a country is going to do regarding climate change, and you can quickly swamp the differences between all those different climate models by putting in different choices of R. You can get a party now or party later result, depending on what you like. Evidence-based medicine. So it's big. Everyone likes evidence. You want evidence. It's a truism that you want. Obviously, would you like your medicine based on evidence or not? Well, you want it based on evidence. But of course, there was then evidence-based medicine, and many agencies wanted work that was only evidence-based medicine, meaning things like the gold standard of randomized controlled trials or the platinum standard of meta-analyses. But are those philosophers of science trained in methodology and thinking about values and that can think about whether in medicine or even outside of medicine in other areas, whether you can tune a randomized controlled trial in various ways, meta-analyses. There's a great article where they gave all these experts in meta-analysis to ask them to do meta-analyses on all these other meta-analyses and had massively discordant results. And so what do you do then? Again, you need to, you can't just fly by the seat of your pants. You should then, be drawing on some, you get some interesting theory, and there are interesting things to say. And so one is, an example is a book recently by my colleague Nancy Cartwright, who's sitting right there, on evidence-based policy. Going more into medical ethics, you want consent, from people. But what about people with cognitive deficits? What about something really hard and tricky like Alzheimer's, where people have all sorts of different dysfunctions and it's not so clear whether they have a deficit at one time or another? You can come up with different diagnostics of dementia. Should you say that a particular number score on that scale, if you score above, you got consent. If you score below, you don't have the consent. It's very tricky issues, lots of problems. Many, many other issues, obviously, beginning and end of life questions, surrogacy, genetic screening, genetic discrimination, environmental justice. As we saw recently in these cases, brain death, when are you dead? Tons of different issues. And I think it matters. I think an argument can be made, although maybe not by me, but that at the end of the 20th century, you saw a lot of work in ethical theory, in applied ethics, meta-ethics, all these different areas of ethics, emphasizing autonomy. And then in the hospital wards, you then started to see, informed consent forms and all of that. Probably there's back and forth flow of information there, but I think, these are cases where you could see where the highfalutin, it's not just Socrates with his robe and wondering what is good, but where you can see it actually, influencing what's actually happening in a hospital ward. Finally, I'll just mention two things. One is, I'll just brag about my department, and because our department's small and probably most people don't know what we do, but we are ranked in the top 20 in the world in ethics and political philosophy, and in the top 10 in the world in philosophy of science. We're already heavily invested in bioethics on campus, so we teach hundreds of students per year. In a variety of courses. We run a ethics in the public sphere series. We're proposing a bioethics and pre-law minors. We're doing a lot of different things. Our faculty include, two philosophers of science who are interested in values, who are MacArthur Fellows, the Waltz Chair, all sorts of distinguished faculty. And what's important too is not just the moral stuff, but also the connection with the legal. UCSD has no law school. The nearest big decent law school is USD's, and two of our faculty sit as directors of the Institute for Law and Philosophy. So we already have, and many others are connected there as well. And so we have all sorts of connections there. And so I'll just leave you then with an invitation to two of our events this quarter. Okay.
We have time for one question. So, Craig, the nearest USD is not really a great law school, it's a so-so law school. But the nearest great law schools, USC or UCLA. Does that mean that we're going to be at a big competitive disadvantage in the field of bioethics because we don't really have a top law school in San Diego whatsoever?
I don't know. What do you think? I brought some philosophers with me, so.
Well, when doing bioethics, we want to know answers. Sorry, when doing bioethics, we want to know the answers to certain fundamental questions about values as they pertain to the sorts of cases that Craig was talking about, and we also want to know what policies we should adopt and the intersection of those policies and the law. And we do have ethicists at the philosophy department who are well versed in law and are able to address those issues. And they attend conferences in both nearby and in other parts of the United States and the world where they discuss these issues. And in my view, we're not at a disadvantage when it comes to the study and practice of bioethics, given that we don't have a world-class, we don't have a world-class law school really nearby.
We've got the world-class minds, but not the world-class law school.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the idea.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Maybe because we're running a little behind, we'll go to the next talk. And the next talk is by Craig Callender, and it's entitled Science, Philosophy, and Values. Thank you.
Okay. Is trying to find interdisciplinary possibilities between different departments. It says, once the rockets are up, who cares where they come down? That's not my department, says Werner von Braun. And it's also a good quote for this particular initiative where Larry and John and I have been talking about possible initiatives in bioethics and other areas, related areas, because obviously there's another thing that's not in his department is the ethical and social ramifications of what's being done. And so here I just wanted to quickly sketch the basic core idea as I see it, which is that you have all these rapid developments in technology and science. Hi, I'm Craig. I'm the chair of the philosophy department. These are supposed to be TED-style talks, but TED speakers have 6 months or a year to prepare. I had 2 hours, so it won't be like a TED talk whatsoever. This quote from the song by Tom Lehrer, is a great one for the Strategic Planning Initiative, which these often provide all these massive benefits to humanity, but they often outpace our social, moral, and legal norms. We aren't equipped to deal with them as quickly as they arise, so we have all these challenges, and so there's this big gap between what we're producing and